Hello, welcome again to FAIRtax Power Radio. I'm Bob Paxton.
I'm Bob Scarborough.
And we are
And
the FAIRtax Guys. And if you are watching on one of the video content, you will note that I have gone from Kennedy Airport up to my Alaskan Glacier now, which is, we'll probably be seeing this thing again in person before too much longer.
yeah, Mr. World Traveler Bob Paxton enjoys coming home every once in a while to record FAIRtax Guys episodes.
Indeed. And I enjoy going to Alaska, so we will do that as well. And I said, you just got some good news. Your car is back in working order.
Well, yeah, I tend to. I'm a sucker for an old vehicles. Uh,
Mm-hmm.
and So this one sounded like it was missing, spark plug was busted on it or something. And so I take it over to one of my most trusted auto repair shops in town, and it was a small issue. It had to do with
Okay.
setting the computer, and me, I tend to get in trouble when I go any further than changing the oil. So
Okay. Well, if we had the fair tax, you could buy another used car with no fair tax included in the purchase price. Well, so
that's that's right. Yeah, used items carry no fair tax. And
correct. So get the fair tax passed, then go buy yourself a new used car and not have to pay any fair tax on that transaction.
and that goes for clothes and houses and boats that are used because the tax has already been paid on.
Mm-hmm.
There's so much interesting nuggets of information that just on the surface that you don't hear about uh,
Yep.
when you're discussing the fair tax with people, or if you're reading something or seeing a news report or something. People are like, "Yeah, it's great," and then you don't hear
Yeah.
anything. Your representative is certainly not going to tell you about it if you don't already know, because they like the way it's working right now for them.
Yes, it is. Well, I'll tell you what, several weeks ago, I remember I asked you this. I don't know if you got a chance to do it. Have you had a chance to talk to the Wealth Guardians there who have a show on your radio station on Sunday morning? What did they think of the fair tax? Have you had a chance to talk to them about it?
I plan to do that on the 8th of June, which is a week from and a day from the day that we're recording. And by the time this airs, I will have talked to them.
Oh, okay. So we'll see what the Wealth Guardians here on WTOV say about the fair tax. I bet you they like it. Okay. Well, I'll tell you what, let's move on here to our world famous Congress.gov segment on FAIRtax Power Radio, where we take a look at what the Congress critters are doing to the tax code. And the reason that they get away with this is that we're probably the only people in the country that are watching them, outside of the lobbyists that are trying to keep tabs on the fact to make sure that their money is buying what they are trying to buy with it. That they
Right.
will keep an eye and make sure that the Congress people I won't say that they bought them. I don't want to go that far, but that they are getting what they paid for their lobbying dollars. But just plain old folks that want to know what Congress is doing to the tax code, be with us here every week on FAIRtax Power Radio, and we will reveal such wonderful gems for you as HR 8201, which comes from Representative Craig of Minnesota. This is a bill to amend the Internal Revenue Code to lower the corporate tax rate for small businesses and close the carried interest loophole and for other purposes. And I can guarantee you that in the next election cycle, there will be a bill to raise the corporate tax rate for small businesses and reopen the carried interest loophole. That's it. Our tax code is so fluid, so dynamic, so ever changing that for every bill that wants to move in one direction, there will be another bill wanting to go in the other direction. And whoever's in power at the time gets their way. And then when the power switches, then it all goes back the other way, which is probably kind of difficult for you small business people up there to figure out what to do in the long run, because the tax code under which you have to operate just keeps changing constantly.
It's like shifting sand on the beach. It just, it kind of moves around under your feet. It's never the same. Winters change, summer, all the, wind and it just is always changing.
Yes. Well, you know about the shifting sand. You lived in Myrtle Beach for a while.
I
So,
did. 37, great destination, great place. Family still down there, loving life, loving life.
indeed, eating their mustard-based South Carolina barbecue as opposed to the vinegar-based Eastern North Carolina barbecue, which we got into here a couple of weeks ago. Okay, let's keep going here. HR 8149. This is to amend the Internal Revenue Code to clarify the tax treatment of digital asset rewards. Now, I'm not going to pretend that I know what that's all about, but it says to amend the Internal Revenue Code to clarify the tax treatment. So that tells you that the tax treatment of digital asset rewards is kind of murky and probably a bit ambiguous. And now they're going to try to clarify it, which is the reason that we've got 70,000 plus pages of tax code that nobody understands.
Digital asset.
That's what it says. Digital asset rewards. I did not have time to Google that and see what that is, but they want to clarify the tax treatment of digital asset rewards. How cool is that?
That's just, it's nutty. So the IRS.gov page has a digital asset section, so you can Google digital asset rewards if you want to drill in and find out more. But the whole thing is there may be benefit to some of the I don't want to use the word shenanigans. Well, yeah, I'll use it. There's a benefit sometimes to some of the shenanigans that take place in the tax code, but the question is, why does it need to be in the tax code?
Because the Congress critters need money to get reelected, and the lobbyists will supply them that money if they will put these things in the tax code. So it's a tax code. We're supposed to be government of the people, for the people, and by the people, but it's actually of the people, by the lobbyists, and for the lobbyists. So of course, we mentioned that here a couple of weeks ago here on FAIRtax Power Radio, the scope of the lobbying effort that goes into a lot of stuff in Washington, and a good bit of it is directed at the tax code. So if you would like to put the tax code beyond the reach of Washington lobbyists, you might be a FAIRtax fan. All right, let's move on. HR 8067. 8067. This is to amend the Internal Revenue Code to require additional information on math and clerical error notices. That one's, I don't know what to say about that. That's just, if you get a notice from the IRS that says you made a math error or a clerical error, somebody wants to put more information on that. That's a Representative Feenstra from Iowa.
And think about.
I say no comment on that one. If you.
Oh, I do. I have a comment. Think about time is money. Time is money. And here our elected representatives are up there bogged down in minutia that doesn't necessarily involve our taxes, but they make it part of the tax code. Bring about a positive result for somebody that's giving them money to contribute to their reelection campaign or their political action committee or whatever it is that they're using to bring that money into their control, the representatives bringing that money into their control. So it becomes, we sit out here in America and we say, okay, we're being, we're being productive citizens. We're, taking care of our families, and our representatives in Washington are more concerned with the proper wording, which I'm sure is written by some of their staff, the proper wording of entries into the tax code, which may or may not get any further than just that one entry. How many times do you on the Congress.gov and see details added later after we've looked on a regular basis. It could be that that's all that happens is they're just entered, and then that's all the representative has to do.
Okay, our time's getting away from us here. Let's do one more. This is HR 8016 to exclude the Arizona family's tax rebate from federal income tax. Would you like to guess which state a representative is from that sponsors that bill?
Arizona.
Here you go. That is Representative Stanton, Arizona District 4, to exclude the Arizona family's tax rebate from the federal income tax. Picking winners and losers again as to who was it? It was our professor, David Kendall, one time that said that one of the real problems with an income tax is defining what income is. And there are bill after bill after bill to exclude certain income from federal income tax. That doesn't count. That doesn't count. That doesn't count. So we're going to keep doing. Okay, our time's getting away from us. Let's wrap up to our Congress.gov section and get back to our journey through the Boortz and Linder FAIRtax book. We just finished chapter 5 last time. Chapter 6 is called Bringing American Businesses Back Home. This is something that we've talked a good bit about here on FAIRtax Power Radio. Not going to go into a great deal of detail of today, but I want to talk a little paragraph here in the book from a gentleman who was a tax expert for the Daimler Chrysler. You know, Chrysler used to be an American company. They merged with a German company, Daimler. And this tax expert went on to testify that a hypothetical Chrysler Daimler headquartered in the United States would face a 67.5% tax rate, while the actual Daimler Chrysler headquartered in Germany pays only 44%. So if you want to know why American companies leave our shores, taking jobs with them, that is the reason.
Yes, and that's a big thing now with with everybody saying we're going to make corporations pay their fair share. Well, when a corporation hears that, what are they going to do? They're going to figure out how to move their operations away from that particular possibility and increase in the corporate tax. So they're working all the time. And that's, I think, part of the push for a global tax that we hear about every once in a while. So there's a minimum of like 15% that gets applied onto global corporations. And why? I mean, I would think that the first country that brings about the lowest possible, or in the case of the FAIRtax, zero corporate tax, you'll have so much money flooding back into this country, your head will spin off the top of your neck.
Absolutely. Well, let's get on to chapter 7 here in the FAIRtax book. This is called The Birth of the FAIRtax. The idea of changing the way we fund the federal government certainly isn't new. And so there have been several different ways to do that. But again, reading from the book here, the genesis of the consumption tax plan that would become the FAIRtax occurred in Houston, Texas. A Houston businessman served on the board of several major corporations, and after returning from one board meeting, he complained to his friends that fully 80% of the meeting that he was in essentially was wasted on discussion of the tax implications of virtually every business decision they discussed. Quoting him now, he says, "We should be worrying about our customers, our employees, and our shareholders, not the federal government." So he kept on, belly aching about how they have to spend all their time dealing with tax implications until one of his friends said, "All right, bud, why don't you just do something about it?" And thus began the group Americans for Fair Taxation. And they just eventually started with a clean sheet of paper, handed it to a bunch of, really well-known economists from major universities and said, "Design me the best tax collection system you possibly can that funds the federal government at the same level." And everything was on the table. I mean, they could have used a flat tax. They could have used a VAT tax. They could have used any other kind of consumption tax. And again, the goal to develop a system that would raise the same amount of revenue for the government, but which would be less intrusive, less abusive, less coercive and corrosive, and less frustrating as well, more fair, more transparent, easier to administer, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And again, they enlisted the help of several economists at major institutions. And what did they come up with? they come up with what became known as the fair tax. So, I mean, the best economic minds in the country say there is not a better way to collect money for the government than the fair tax would be it. And the only reason we don't have it is because the Congress critters like to keep monkeying with the tax code. They're making a lot of money off of the current system. They are not looking out for us. They are not looking out for taxpayers. They are not looking out for American businesses. They're looking out for themselves. And we need to make that change at the polls, folks.
Well,
I
and
gotta have some more cheer wine.
I think too, what we talked about a few shows ago about the sheer volume of lobbyist activity. There's an entire industry in DC that is taking our representatives out to dinner and going in and funding political action committees and so on. That the lobbyist industry is, and I've always said, free speech. Part of that component of the freedom of speech is the electoral process, is the political process around elections, where you as an individual or family or corporation can give to a representative. I think that sort of equates to free speech. That's my opinion on that. So we're fine with a corporation that is funneling literally millions of dollars into the lobbyist industry for them to turn around and go to the representative and push certain favors that are handled through the tax code, as we discuss on every show.
Absolutely. So you can see that the birth of the fair tax came about because somebody who was dealing with it on a constant basis realize that the system we've got, our current income payroll tax system, is just rotten. It interferes with their businesses. It is intrusive. It is invasive. It's easy to evade. That really wasn't mentioned as part of the reason that the fair tax was invented, but that's part of the thing as well. So that's how it was born. It was born out of necessity. People who were in a position to see it said, the system we've got now is rotten. There has got to be a better way. And they had the resources to develop a better way, and they did. It became the fair tax. Now we just got to convince our representatives up there to pass it.
Exactly.
Talk
about the amount of time that the fair tax. We're talking about back in the 90s, and even a little bit before that. And we did this on a show not too long ago. People think, gosh, we should be far enough along. Well, when you think about the suffragists who were working to advocate for the women's voting rights, took them many, many, many years, 42 in some cases by some people's calculations. But for the 19th Amendment, for the U.S. Constitution, from the time they started to work it Congress in 1919, and then went to the states. So we are planting seeds, folks. Those of you who are listening and watching, we're all volunteers. We're planting seeds. You are talking to people and moving things forward, and it may take a moment to do this. It isn't going to happen overnight. So be of good cheer, knowing the positive effect and the outcome will be achieved. All we have to do is persist.
Absolutely. All right, let's look on page 74 here in the FAIRtax book. If you've been living under a rock and you don't know what the fair tax will do, it replaces the federal income tax system. When passed and signed into law, the fair tax, here's a whole list of things that go away. The individual income tax, the alternative minimum tax, corporate and business income taxes, capital gains taxes, Social Security taxes, Medicare taxes, along with all the other federal payroll taxes, self-employment tax, the estate tax, and the gift tax. All of that stuff is replaced by the fair tax, which is, again, a retail consumption tax on the retail purchase of new goods and services. And again, we're heading into an election cycle. And I guarantee you that anyone who runs on the fair tax, or even in the past supported the fair tax, like our governor here in Florida, Ron DeSantis, is going to be accused of wanting to impose a new tax that's going to cost you 23% more for everything you buy. That is, as they say across the pond, rubbish.
Well, and I think that's where you have to begin to look at the details. If you hear the headline, that's one thing.
Mm-hmm.
Good or bad, false or true about the fair tax, and that's all you hear about. Then we will never be able to get past that. Whatever that negative is or positive is that you might hear. And this is why these books that Representative John Linder and radio host Neil Boortz wrote back in the 90s, it doesn't take long to read them.
Mm-hmm. Well,
gives you greater insight into what we discuss here on the program. It's well worth, and we're not trying to sell the books or anything. We just think that, and you can get it today. You can get it like that with Kindle on. It doesn't take a second.
Obviously, we do not profit at all when people buy the FAIRtax book, though we will try to get as many people as we can to get it. Now, the book also mentions two things that the FAIRtax is not. Yes. It is not a VAT. It is not a value-added tax like you have in Europe. And it is not a new tax. It is a replacement plan for the current income tax. And it is amazing how many people just cannot get that concept through their head. It replaces the income tax. It does not charge on top of the income tax, thereby making your life 23% more expensive. It replaces the taxes you're already. It just changes the point at which you're taxed from when you make your money to when you spend your money. And that's it.
And when you stop to think about it, and especially in this time of sustained inflation that we're living in right now, where the cost of goods and services have risen in some cases, for a lot of people, unbearable levels, where you have to decide, am I going to do this and pay this bill, or am I going to buy a grocery? And a lot of people are having challenges in terms of, fuel to get to work two jobs to pay whatever it is that they're paying. So we have an opportunity to take this time that we're living in and take everybody like this and go look at what's taking place and hold their head.
Mm-hmm.
And this is the solution. The FAIRtax Act, HR 25 in the House of Representatives. Find out where your senators stand on this. We really need to be putting senators into the direction of sponsorship of the fair tax in the Senate.
Yeah, I tell you what, I've also heard people that are objecting to the fair tax on the grounds that it taxes services. In Florida, several years ago here, we had a proposal to try to extend the state sales tax down here to services, and that got shot down. But the fair tax, again, is levied against all goods and services. Yes, you will pay a tax to your doctor under the fair tax. In fact, 20% of the money you pay your doctor today represents what we talked about last week, the embedded cost of the tax system. So your doctor's fee might actually go down. But why tax for medical care? We need to be clear about this. Again, quoting from the book, government ought to be neutral. It should not allow politicians to pick winners and losers. Doctors, dentists, lawyers, and accountants should not be treated any differently from their neighbors who happen to be retailers. If their neighbors have to collect the tax, then they should too. Again, it's just being fair. And again, you've got the embedded cost of the tax system embedded in the cost of services as well as embedded in the cost of goods. So it makes perfect sense to apply the fair tax to services as well, because it is replacing a component in the price of those services that is imposed by the income tax. I mean, your accountant, your dentist, your doctor, your lawn care guy, they all have to pay income tax. And the fact that they have to pay income tax is reflected in the price of the service that they charge for. And so, taxing services is fine because, again, you're just replacing the embedded costs that are already in the price of those services with the fair tax.
I'm getting ready to go get my other battery because my sun just went down. The light just went off.
Oh, mercy. Well, we got about 3 minutes left. Oh, you're going to roll your rolling chair over there. Yeah, you're sitting in a dark room without any windows. And of course, this is now you're back on. You can get Sunburn City if you're not careful.
Tell you, sunburn. I got to go get the sea and ski on. It's getting bright in here again.
Yeah, see. Well, there was a reason that you and I both had our broadcast careers in radio rather than television. And getting sunburned by all the lights in a TV studio is one of them. I tell you what, that was
But anyway, yeah. So FAIRtax, the book, folks, get a copy. And again, we're just excited that this bit of knowledge was drilled into the fellow who introduced HR 25 decades ago, Representative John Linder, dentist in Atlanta, near Atlanta, Georgia.
Yep, he's been kind enough to be on here with us a couple of times. He's a good guy to talk to.
He and Neil Boortz supplied the fuel for those first few years. And
I imagine if we asked Boortz to appear on the program here with us, he would tell us to take a long walk on a short pier. But who knows? Linder wouldn't want to. Excuse me.
Challenge is we you all out there watching, listening, are the leaders that we've been looking for. It's going to be up to us to move this needle forward and continue the pressure on our representatives to consider this, especially now, because you can use the lead-in, the one thing that has everybody in a tizzy right now in Washington is this persistent inflation that is causing great pressure on our budgets. The time for us to look at something revolutionary, which is the fair.
All right. Well, I say we are about halfway through our journey through the FAIRtax book. There are 16 chapters, and we will continue to be going through it here on the next several episodes of FAIRtax Power Radio. Again, we encourage folks to buy the book. I mean, obviously, we can't go through every word that's written in there. It's a very entertaining book. It's written in a very entertaining style. And of course, it's very informative as well. You can get it at Amazon. You can probably get it off of eBay. You can probably get it at Barnes and Noble or wherever else they sell books online. But again, we do encourage people to read the FAIRtax book for themselves. Tell your friends and family about our FAIRtax Power Radio. Like and share the videos. That helps us a great deal. But I'm afraid that is all the time we have for this edition of FAIRtax Power Radio. Thank you again so much for watching, listening, and sharing. We will see you back again next week, same time, same channel, here on the FAIRtax official Facebook page and the FAIRtax Guys YouTube channel. Until we meet again, I'm Bob Paxton.
Bob Scarborough.
We are the FAIRtax Guys, reminding you the FAIRtax is the only truly fair tax, and once you understand it,
you will demand it.
So, how much will I bring home?
Go ahead.
How much do you make? We'll just say 40,000. Okay, keep it simple, throw out the deductions, all that stuff. So, you got your 40K, right? Now the first 8,000 is going to be taxed at 10%. The 8 to 33,000 is going to be taxed at 15%. And the 33 to 40, of course, is 25%. So that brings your total to $6,345.
Okay, so the average is what?
16%. Okay, and then on top of that, you got Medicare, which is 1.5%, and then of course your Social Security, which is 6.2%. So actually, your new total is $9,405.
Which is
23.65%. You're getting it. You're getting it. Don't even get me started on what the boss has to pay. He's got to pay a portion of your taxes as well, so you don't have to.
Right. And you?
Oh,